You're here tonight for the Newburyport Solarize program. This is Solar 201. I'm Molly Ettenborough. I'm the Energy and Recycling Coordinator for the city. And the city became a green community in December 2010. And as part of that, we were eligible to apply to the Solarize program. We applied and we were accepted happily. And we shortly thereafter formed a group of volunteers who I will name. We have Ron Martino, Kristen Wolf, Bill Fogel, Jill Haley-Murphy, who is our solar coach, Brendan Hike, sorry, got your last name. Who else is here tonight? Oh, sorry, Joanne Clemens. That is our volunteer group. We couldn't be doing this without a volunteer group. And Jill, as our solar coach, will tell you a little bit more about how things are working with our solar installer, SunBug, who is here tonight. We're going to hear from SunBug, how it works. We're also going to hear from the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, who is managing the program. We also have here with us tonight our Northeast representative, Joanne Becerra. Where is she? Oh, there she is. Couldn't see you. And she is from the Department of Energy Resources in Boston, and she was also instrumental in helping us become a solarized community. So welcome, and here is Jill Haley-Murphy. Thank you.
Thanks to the Solarize Newburyport team of volunteers who, as Molly said, none of this would be happening without them. Dedicated group of volunteers who want to see solar energy brought to Newburyport. And I think the reason you're all here is because you want the practicalities of does it make sense for you financially, as well as in other ways. And the star of the show this evening will be Ben Mayer from SunBug Solar. And SunBug Solar is the solar installer that was chosen by the city of Newburyport to do these installations. It was a rigorous selection process, so we're very pleased to have them here, and we think they will do a good job for everyone. Two important things. One, if you want a cold drink, there's a cooler at the end of that table. Don't hesitate to get up in the middle of anything. It's brutal here tonight. And two, we're going to try and do this as quickly as possible because we understand that no one is comfortable here. So thank you again for coming. And I'd like to introduce Elizabeth Kennedy from the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. She's going to tell you a little bit about this state program. And Newburyport, thanks to Molly and her group of volunteers, got the designation as a solarized city. So Elizabeth will start the things off, and then we'll hear from SunBug. Thanks, Elizabeth.
I am going to keep my portion of this presentation short. I just wanted to sort of quickly set the stage for those of you who may not have attended the Solar 101, really just high level about the program and setting the stage for what the residential solar market looks like here in Massachusetts. And then I'm going to turn it over to Ben to really talk about what the process would be if you were interested in going solar. So a little bit of background. The Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, for those of you who don't know, we're a quasi-public state agency, and we are tasked with developing and driving the clean tech industry here in Massachusetts. And one of the ways that we do that is through programs like this, where we can deploy different models to help grow the solar industry. That's my focus, grow the solar industry here in the state. So the Solarize Mass program is a program where we're looking to increase education around the program, around the technology, and work with an installer to provide customers a great deal on solar. The three main takeaways that I hope you take from my presentation are: one, Massachusetts electricity prices are extremely high. We are the 7th highest in the country. That's mainly because we're in the Northeast, we're at the end of the pipeline. We don't produce our electricity, most of our electricity here in the state, so we have to bring it from other parts of the country or from Canada. So when you are looking at a technology like solar, when you install solar, you're basically paying for 20, 30 years of your electricity up front, or you could, there are other options, but you are offsetting extremely expensive electricity. So there's a way to directly save on your electricity from day one. I just wanted to draw your attention to the bottom right-hand box. I don't know, it's a little hard to see, but that represents the historic average residential rate for electricity here in Massachusetts. And what we've seen is it's sort of steadily gone up over the years. It's dipped down a little bit due to the exploration of shale gas, but what we are finding is that in talks with utilities and other consultants is that electricity prices with the utilities are going to continue to rise through investments in infrastructure and the idea that electricity prices, even though natural gas is low, is going to continue to go up. The second takeaway is costs have come down for residential projects here in Massachusetts, and through this program we hope to drive that cost down even further. This chart shows the blue line, which represents average residential installation costs in Massachusetts. Going back to 2002, the average cost was $12 per watt. That's how we talk about solar. And when I started working in the industry in 2007, it was about $8 a watt. That represented residential paybacks of anywhere to 12 to 15 years. Now, in 2011, the average project here in the state probably has a payback of roughly 6 to 7 years. And what we're hoping to do is further drive down the cost through a group purchasing model so that we're seeing paybacks of, anywhere to 4 to 5 years. The green bars on this chart represent the number of installations that we've seen here in Massachusetts. So it makes sense, as prices have come down, we have seen hundreds of new projects. And then finally, the third takeaway that I want folks who are sort of new to the technology to know is that we do have enough sun here in Massachusetts to make the technology feasible. We're definitely not the desert Southwest. We're not in the red zone, but we're definitely square in the middle in terms of receiving enough solar resource to make these projects economically feasible. For those of you who are at the original 101, you probably heard my colleague mention this, but the little insert on the bottom right-hand side of the picture shows the country of Germany, which has the largest solar market in the world. They have about 35 gigawatts of solar installed, and the country of Germany has a poorer solar resource than any state in the United States. So to sort of put that in perspective, we definitely have enough sun. So those three things, high electricity prices, the fact that the cost is going to be reduced in this program, and the fact that we have enough sun is really what helps to make these projects economical. There are now different ownership models that are available, and Ben will talk about this in more detail, but if you don't want to put money down up front and purchase the system, there will be other options for you under the program as well. And then finally, I just want to mention that if you find that solar PV is not feasible for your site, maybe your home is not oriented correctly, you have too much shading, consider energy efficiency. It's definitely what we refer to as the low-hanging fruit. They'll have the best paybacks, usually looking at energy efficiency first. And we also have a solar hot water program if it's something that you're interested in. The incentives in Massachusetts are many. There's a state and federal tax incentive. The federal tax incentive covers 30% of the total installation cost. And then there's a $1,000 Massachusetts income tax credit. There are rebates through our organization, the Clean Energy Center. On average, they represent about 7 to 8% of the installed cost, but I would say anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 is what you could expect for a rebate. There's an incentive called net metering, which I'll talk about in a minute, as well as SRECS. And then there are, as I mentioned, this no money down option where you don't have to pay for the system outright. So net metering, the idea behind net metering, it's a fabulous incentive. What it means is when you install solar, that system immediately begins generating electricity. And if you're generating more electricity at any given time than what you're using on site, that excess electricity feeds back into the utility grid. And you're able to use the utility almost as a bank. So that utility will give you a credit for your excess generation. so that later on, when you start using electricity, you eat down on that credit before the utility ever starts charging you for additional electricity use. So it's a way to directly offset your usage by installing solar. For those who were not at the Solar 101, there's a little diagram. It's probably hard to see of a home, but basically the way solar works is you install panels on a roof, and the electricity flows through what's called an inverter. That's the other sort of main piece of equipment. The inverter converts it from DC electricity, direct current, to AC, alternating current, and that is the form that electricity that your utilities and your appliances could use. So those are sort of the two main pieces of equipment to keep in mind. The other incentive, the other major incentive in the state of Massachusetts is called the SREC program. It stands for Solar Renewable Energy Certificates. And the idea behind SRECS is that when you install solar, you're really producing two value streams. You're producing the actual electrons that flow into your home or onto the grid and you can net meter. And then you also produce the green attribute associated with those electrons. So it's what distinguishes them from electricity that's produced from a coal-fired power plant, for example. And there is a market in Massachusetts for homeowners to sell the SRECs that their system generates. So Ben will help explain this more, but there will be a way to also receive an income from selling those green certificates. And then finally, the lease model that will be offered is another option for customers that don't want to purchase the system outright. So the whole idea behind the Solarize strategy is really to squeeze the cost stack associated with solar. The solar industry globally has seen costs come down for panels in particular, so we have seen costs come down as a result of that. But where the clean energy decided to focus was, could we reduce the soft costs associated with residential solar systems? And one way to do that is, we said to the solar industry, if we could go into a community and sort of do a group purchasing model, would that reduce your marketing and acquisition costs? And they said, yeah. So, and in doing that, they can then charge you, the customer, less than what they would charge sort of the general market. So by reducing the marketing and acquisition costs, what we refer to as some of the soft costs, we're able to offer customers under the Solarize program a lower price for solar than what we see in the average residential market in the state. So there are sort of four main parties in the program. The Clean Energy Center is just helping with marketing and just some general assistance. We'll be providing all customers that are eligible for rebates under this program with a rebate. The community is really looking for volunteers and folks to spread the word about solar, even if it's something that it turns out may not be right for you. If you could spread the word, as more people sign up in this program, the price will go down for everyone. So there really is incentive to talk to people about the program. As a homeowner or a business owner, really your next step, if you're interested, is talking to SunBug and signing up for a potential site assessment to see if your site is feasible for solar. SunBug will really be responsible for the bulk of the work. They will work with you to evaluate your site. If you decide to move forward, they will design the system. They're providing you a turnkey installation service. So they'll deal with all of the paperwork, the permitting, working with the utility, doing the actual installation. So they will be a key resource, and we are very happy to have them on board. In terms of the selection process, the Clean Energy Center did a competitive request for proposals to the installer industry, and the City of Newburyport received 5 proposals, which were scrutinized on a very high level, but we weren't only focused on price. While we wanted customers to receive a really good price under this program, we also wanted to make sure that the installer that was selected would really be able to provide tremendously good customer service and make this a pleasant program for you to come through. So we wanted someone with a lot of experience who knew how to work with your community. So the Clean Energy Center and the local review committee decided on SunBug. Just to give you a sense, if you were to purchase the system, as I mentioned, there's incentive as more people sign up, the price will go down for everyone. Those are what we call tiered pricing. So the first tier, the first person that comes to this program, they will receive, under this program, over a 5% reduction relative to the average installation cost at the beginning of the program. But if we get to the highest tier, which could be, roughly maybe 50 projects, so we're not talking a huge number of projects, you could receive almost 25% cost savings relative to the average installation cost. So the model really does work through group purchasing to drive down the cost. There have already been over 170 people in Newburyport who have expressed interest in the program, so the numbers are there. SunBug is now working to reach out to folks to identify whether they might have feasible sites, and if so, to schedule site assessments. But if you have not already signed up, I believe that there's a sign up at the front, so on your way out, if you're interested, you can sign up as well. I'd recommend going to SunBug's website. If you're interested in learning more about the Solarize Mass program, that is our website, and I also just want to put in another plug for looking at energy efficiency. If you are going through this program and you are getting a rebate, the Clean Energy Center will require you to get an energy audit anyway, so I recommend going to the MassCEC website and scheduling that. You qualify for a free residential audit every year, so it's worth taking a look at. And we do have a solar hot water program as well. So that's our contact information. Thank you very much. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ben to actually talk to you about the great deal that's being offered here in Newburyport. Thank you.
My name is Ben Mayer. I lead the residential sales side of SunBug Solar. I really appreciate everybody coming out in a very warm room this evening. And I've got a lot of information in this presentation. And I'll try to move at a decent pace, and I'd ask that you hold your questions until the end. There's a time at the end to ask questions, to look at actual panels, to talk to the various people from SunBug here, to touch physical equipment. So there's plenty of opportunity to get very directly into your specific questions, but I want to give everybody the opportunity to learn as much as they can before we get into deeper questions. How many people who are in this room were at the 101, the Solarize 101? Okay. And how many of those people have received contact from Solarize Newburyport or SunBug Solar about their sites, even scheduled? Excellent, excellent. We're working very hard to get to all of the people who are looking for information, and we're trying to find out if their site is feasible. And we're in pretty good shape, and in the coming weeks, we'll be working at even more of an aggressive pace. So when you get an email or a call from us, give us a call back. We'll schedule a time, we'll come to your house, we'll actually figure out if your site is feasible, and we'll design a system from there. A couple overview things. The program, we're doing a lot of work, SunBug is doing a lot of work, but really an enormous amount of work is being done by the community volunteers. This is an actual community program. In other words, without all of the volunteers that are driving this, none of this could happen. That slide that Elizabeth showed about driving down the cost of things, that comes from real work from Jill's team, and it's very important. And it's important to understand that the way that this program is set up, it's based on tiers. So the more people that we can get involved, literally the better price that everybody gets. So I call it a solar Groupon, even though I'm sure I'm not allowed to use that term because it's copyright or something. But it's a true model. The more people that adopt, the better the pricing gets for everybody involved. Our hub for where to learn information, for where to track program progress, is a wonderful website that was set up by the community called SolarizeNewburyport.com. And you can go there whenever you want, and you can see we're at this level, we're making this progress. You can learn about Sam Marabi across the street, who is our first customer, wonderful guy at 7 Brown Square. where we're going to be doing his installation very early because we want to invite everybody who has questions about it to come. That's going to be on August 2nd and 3rd. So we've already got going. We've already got our first people involved. And you can learn more about our progress at the website. Oh, one other thing. All of these slides we'll put on the website too. So depending on how aggressive a note taker you are, you don't have to sweat it if you miss something. This is mostly just about the different roles. So the Clean Energy Center established the program. And they're going to give a rebate to every qualified project in Solarize Newburyport, which is different from how they normally operate. Normally how they operate is they release a certain amount of money and everybody rushes to get it. And then when that money's over, everybody has to wait and see if there's going to be a new block of funding. The Clean Energy Center is committed to everybody who has a qualified system, who we can install for, to get a rebate. So that's a really wonderful thing that they've done. The outreach group, which I've just talked about a little bit, who is in charge of spreading the word about the program and who's doing a really excellent job. And then us, and we're kind of the nuts and bolts of the operation, right? So we do the free evaluations, we do all assessments, then we get into contracting, we get into permitting, we do all the rebate paperwork, and finally the most important part, we put it on your roof. And the way that we got to this point, Elizabeth spoke about a little bit, but it was a big deal for Newburyport to get selected by the Clean Energy Center for this, and it was a big deal for SunBug to have the opportunity to be selected by Newburyport and the CEC to work with you. Okay, us. SunBug does solar. We do both solar electric and solar hot water systems. The Solarize Newburyport program is specifically about solar electric systems, but we will install a solar hot water system on your roof if we determine that it's something that is right for you as well. We don't do a lot of the other renewables. There's really interesting stuff happening in wind and geothermal and stuff like that. We are not experts in that. We're sun experts. But we do it for residences, we do it for businesses, we do it for churches, we do it for nonprofits. We do systems that are very small and we do systems that are very large. So our breadth of expertise is quite significant when it comes to the sun specifically. Our central mantra, our central tenet is that we are after practical solutions for people. We don't go after the fanciest, newest thing. We don't go after the most expensive thing. What we do is we pair what is the best technology under the circumstances for what is right for you and marry that to the right financing options. We've done a lot of projects. We work only in Massachusetts. We've done over 150. We're NABCEP certified. We have licensed master electrician. We're licensed home improvement contractor. We're an expedited installer under the CEC's program. We have been doing this for a while, and we have a lot of experience, and we have all of the necessary certifications and a great deal of skill about it. And locally, we know what works in New England when it comes to solar, you know? I mean, we work in Massachusetts. And there are a bunch of people who you might have the opportunity to meet. Myself, Lisa Raffin, Cheney Brand is here, our CEO. Ben, Mike, and Mike are the people on the ground running around in Newburyport. And you will, they're over there, they're at that table. You'll have a chance to speak with them if you want to. You may have seen them at your home. Andrea does a lot of our project coordination, and then we have a very experienced installation team. They're not here this evening because they spent the day on a very hot roof installing a solar system for somebody. Very basically, solar electricity, as we saw from Elizabeth. Panels on a roof are put together into an array. That array makes DC electricity. It's converted into AC electricity, the electricity we use in our home, by something called an inverter. The utility takes the meter that's on your home and they replace it with a new meter, and that meter measures the flow of electricity both ways. It's called a net meter, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And then SunBug thinks it's really important to have a monitor on any system that we install, because we're trying to get to widespread adoption, so we want an easy way for people to make sure that they understand their system is working. And here's a important thing in understanding solar systems. A system size is measured in kilowatts. One way to think of that is that's the engine of the car. What is its capacity? So a typical residential system is 5 kilowatts, which might be 20 250 watt panels equaling 5 kilowatts. That's not what it's going to make. What it's going to make is a factor of its siting, how it's pointed, where it is in the world. In Newburyport, a 5 kilowatt system is going to make somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 or a little bit more kilowatt hours. So that same 5 kW system in Germany makes a different amount of electricity than it does in New England, than it does in Arizona. Again, monitoring. How do you know that it's working? Well, you don't want to kind of sit there and wonder if it's doing what it's doing. SunBug has a monitoring system that we've actually developed. But for every single system that we do in Newburyport, we're going to install a monitoring system, either our own, or if the technology is appropriate for an N-phase system or a locus system, in the case of the residential lease, we're going to put that on your house. Are you a good candidate for solar? I think the first questions that you should ask have less to do with your roof and your property and more to do with you, because we will shape the system that you're looking for based upon what your concerns are. If you're concerned about the environment, you know, it's important to understand that this has an enormous impact on CO2 output of a household over its lifetime, over a 30-year lifetime. It's very significant. If you're a number cruncher, right, you're an investment person, this is an incredibly good place to put your money. The ROIs are astounding because of all of the incentives. And some people are concerned about rising utility costs and being tied to the utility and not having any control. I mean, in Massachusetts, utilities are monopolies, right? So you guys can't decide, oh, I'm going to sign up for NSTAR. You guys are stuck with National Grid, which is good or bad depending on how you feel about NSTAR. But the point is that one of the reasons that a lot of people come to us is for looking for energy independence. And basic things that we're gonna ask you that you're gonna want to know: how much electricity do you use? What size investment are you looking to make? Are you looking to cover your roof? Are you looking to use a part of your roof? And then how do you want to pay for it? Do you want to own it, or do you want to do a leasing experience where you don't own it, but it costs you very little up front? I'm going to talk a little bit about actual site considerations, because I think that's helpful for people sometimes. In this program, a good candidate is an owner-occupied home, a business that owns their own building. Roof orientation does not have to be perfect 180 solar south. It could be off by 60 degrees and still be good. Roof pitch does not have to be 45 degrees or perfectly flat. There's a nice range in there. There's a lot of sites that can work. In terms of size, a very, very rough way of thinking about it is that 100 square feet of roof generates you 1 kilowatt. So a typical system that's 5 kilowatts, you need about 500 square feet of free, generally southern-facing roof. Condos are possible. They're a little bit difficult because in most condo arrangements, you don't actually own your roof. You own from studs in. So you have to come to an arrangement with a condo association, but it's doable. Slate roofs are very, very difficult if they're older. Some slate roofs can be done depending on the condition of the slate. And then tree shade is really the central factor that we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to address. And sometimes you get to a house and they have a big, beautiful tree, and that's the situation, right? It's not an intelligent thing to remove that gorgeous tree. Things that you really can't do is if you're a renter, doesn't work because you don't own your building. And if you're doing leasing, you have to have a certain credit score because your system is owned by a third party and they're going to need you to have a certain credit level. Here's a Newburyport home. Taking a look at it, you can see that its orientation is about, that red line is about 45 degrees off of dead perfect solar south. Dead perfect solar south is down. So it has pretty good orientation. Its roof side is not enormous. It doesn't look like it has significant shade problems, although in the bottom picture you can see I'm a little bit worried about those big trees to the west. So it's good for the upper, but not great for the lower. And what did we discover? Well, something in between a 3 to 6 kW system is possible. When we go to that house, we'll climb on that roof and we'll discover exactly what we can do. Also, solar hot water might be a good choice for this person. If it turns out the shade on that roof is too much, solar hot water is much more forgiving for shade. So if photovoltaic doesn't work, we might suggest to them that they consider a solar hot water system. Here's another Newburyport site. Again, very similar roof orientation and pitch. About 45 degrees off of south, and the pitch isn't very severe. But look at the bottom photograph. There is a rather magnificent tree directly to the southwest that's shading that roof basically all the time. Now, when we're looking at these satellite photographs, sometimes they're old. They're not updated every day, and we may discover that this tree came down in last winter's storm. So we're going to contact that customer and we're going to say, hey, is that tree there? If that tree's there, solar is not a good idea for you. If that tree isn't there, we'll be right out. We'll climb on your roof. We'll figure it out. Here's a commercial property. Very good orientation, big flat roof, so we can totally work with it. Absolutely no shade issues. Very strong candidate, and it could be a decent sized system, maybe as many as 25 kW. SunBug is approaching this project very much with the intent of addressing both the commercial opportunities and the residential opportunities. And the CEC has allowed us, they've given us permission to count projects that don't fit in the original criteria of 1 to 15 kW in the overall pricing tier. And this is very beneficial to everybody because one big project could bump everybody in the community up by a whole tier, right? I mean, it's a significant opportunity. So if you guys discover that solar isn't right for your home, if you guys have businesses in the community, if you guys have churches that you attend in the community, we love to install on churches. They're wonderful places for solar. They got big roofs and low electricity bills. Please spread the word in that way. It's important that we get as many people involved as possible. The incentives. From the financial point of view, there's the rebate that the CEC is giving to everybody, and I'll discuss what those levels are in a second. There's a federal 30% tax credit, which is enormous. 30% of the gross cost of the system, you owe less in taxes when you file your taxes. There's a state tax credit of 15%, which is great, but they capped it at $1,000, so it's always $1,000 for everybody, basically. Then there's SRECS, Solar Renewable Energy Credits, and I'll discuss those in a little bit. And then on commercial projects, there's accelerated depreciation. So if you have a large expensive system on your roof, the accelerated depreciation has an enormous effect on that investment. Outside of the financial incentives, there's also very important policies. Net metering, which we learned a little about and I'll talk about a little more. And also there's a property tax exemption. So you install a very beautiful thing on your roof that costs a lot of money. Your property taxes cannot go up because if it's a solar system. You can't be charged more taxes. And there's a sales tax exemption. So in this transaction where you buy this system, you don't pay Massachusetts sales tax. Couple key concepts. Net metering. Elizabeth did a good job. I think bank is the key word here. Essentially what happens is you have a new meter on your home that is literally measuring the flow of electricity both directions. So in 1 month, if you make 400 kilowatt hours and you consume 500 kilowatt hours, your bill at the end of the month is the net difference. It's 100 kilowatt hours. And it actually works. That's an actual bill from one of my customers who in this particular month had no payment due and had earned herself $10.26 in credit. I mean, it's a real thing that happens with the utility, and the utility tracks your overall net metering credits. Rebate and the tax credit, so some of the financial ones. The Solarize Newburyport CEC rebate that Elizabeth is bringing to us, it's based on the size of the system, and the base amount is 40 cents per watt. However, for people who are of moderate home value or moderate income, and I can get into the detail of that a little bit, home value in Newburyport is $400,000 or less, and income for a single family, for a single individual is $75,000, and for a family is $95,000. If you meet either of those criteria, either the home value or the income value, you get your rebate doubled. So a $2,000 rebate becomes a $4,000 rebate. The federal 30% tax credit, that's pretty self-explanatory, 30% of the gross cost of the system. The one thing that I would say is that a lot of people ask, is that a deduction, or how does that actually work? It's important to understand it's a tax credit. So 30% of the cost of the system, you owe less in taxes. Doesn't have to do with your income or anything like that. And if your tax burden for that year was $2,000 and your tax credit was $4,000, well then not only do you not owe taxes, but you get that $2,000 additional rolled over. So it goes through 2016. You can keep on taking advantage of that until you've used up every penny. The state tax credit, capped at $1,000. The accelerated depreciation for commercial projects, and then SRECS. And SRECS are the most complicated of all the incentives. And I'll try to describe them a little bit, but you know, talk more about it with us. You know, it's something that takes a while to wrap your head around. An SREC is a fabricated incentive. It represents an environmental benefit. And essentially what it is it's a way of saying, hey, rather than raising the cost of electricity for everybody in the community in order to be able to install solar or afford solar, let's give those people who do go solar an extra financial incentive, right? So it's a credit that you earn and that has value to it because on the other side of the equation, while you're making them, the DOER, who runs the program, has said to the profit-making utilities in Massachusetts, you guys have to buy SRECs. So there's a market. You guys make them, and the utilities have to buy them. It's a market, though. It's a supply and demand market. There's no fixed price for an SREC. The value of SRECs can go up and down. But the DOER, in building this program, they run this program, built in what they call price support mechanisms, tools to make sure that the market doesn't bottom out or explode, right? The high value of an SREC is determined by a tool that they have called the alternative compliance payment. All that is the fine that they're going to hit the utility with for not buying enough. So if the utility has to buy 10,000 and they only buy 9,000, well, for all those 1,000 remaining, they're going to be hit with a fine of $550. That means nobody's going to buy your SREC for $551. The worst thing that's going to happen to them is they're going to get a $550 fine. That's the top value of the market. That number scales down over time. The DOER publishes a schedule. It's by 5% over the next 10 years. The floor value of an SREC is determined by another tool they have called the Solar Credit Clearinghouse. And that's a tool where they've put in place where they've said, hey, if you can't sell your SREC in the market, bring it to us at the end of the year when you haven't been able to sell it, and we'll take it off your hands and we'll put it into our own auction. We'll take everybody's and we'll sell them as a group to the utility. So that's their way of trying to establish a floor value for an SREC. That floor value is it's really $300, but there's a 5% fee for doing that, so it's $285. You won't sell your SRECs yourself. You'll use a broker or an aggregator, just like you'd use a stockbroker. The one that we've brought onto this program is called SREC Trade. They are wonderful people. They're very smart. I like them quite a bit. Yes, Jill? Sure. Yes, it's per megawatt hour. Thank you very much. So if your 5 kW system is making 6,000 kilowatt hours, that's 6 megawatt hours, that's 6 SRECs. Thank you very much, Jill. And we'll get into the actual financial breakdown of that in a second. But practically, you're not going to sell your SRECs yourself. You're going to use a broker or an aggregator. SREC Trade is an excellent broker or aggregator, and you can use them, or you can use somebody else. They are your SRECs if you own your system, right? So you get to do what you want with them. We think these guys are the best, and they're also the largest aggregator in Massachusetts. It's important to understand that net metering and SRECs are different. They work in parallel with each other. So practically, through net metering, every kilowatt hour of electricity you make has a value to you of what you pay for electricity. In other words, you're not buying a 15-cent kilowatt hour from National Grid. You made it yourself, so that's wonderful. What will we be paying for power in the future? That's an important thing to build into an ROI calculation for something that's going to be on your roof for 30 years, right? Is the price of electricity going to stay the same? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? None of us know. All we can look at is historical trends, and that is that over the last 20 years in New England, it's gone up by about 3% per annum. So you factor that in. Over a shorter period of time, it's gone up more. In the last 2 years, it's come down because of fracking, very specifically because of fracking. Then, in addition to that, through SRECS, you're going to make somewhere between 51 cents and 28 cents per kilowatt hour. That is, every 1,000 kilowatt hours equals a megawatt hour of electricity, and each megawatt hour equals an SREC, and each REC is worth between $550 and $285 each. I've discounted a little bit because there's a broker fee, so you're going to make 51 cents. So what that means is that when you add those two things together, a kilowatt hour of solar electricity made has a much higher value than just the value of offsetting the electricity that you're not buying from the utility. And that's why you get to these incredibly strong ROIs in Massachusetts and really, really aggressive paybacks. Now, you may want to purchase your system, or you may want to lease your system. It's not entirely unlike purchasing or leasing anything in life, right? If you purchase it, the rebate goes to you, the tax credits go to you, the SRECs go to you. You get a warranty from SunBug, 5 years installation warranty. Anything that happens, we take care of it. You get the 25-year warranty from the panel manufacturer for the panels, and you get the warranty from the inverter manufacturer, and it depends on what inverter is used, but it could be 10 or 25 years. And a good way to finance that, if you don't have capital sitting in your bank, is these incredibly ridiculous home equity loans that are at very, very low rates. Your IRR will play out in somewhere between 15 and 25%. Your payback will be 4 to 6 years, even better potentially. And over 30 years, you're going to see a life cycle savings of tens of thousands of dollars. A very, very significant, very, very strong investment. If you lease, you don't have to come up with that capital, right? You can install a solar system for nothing. You don't own it. A third party owns it, a leasing entity. You don't have to pay a lot of money up front. You've locked in your electricity rate for the next 10 years because when you sign the lease, you know exactly how much you're going to pay for it over the next 20 years. Maintenance is included because you don't own it. So it's in the interest of the leasing company to address any issues that arise. Leasing generally works best for very, very strong sites, ones that are really well oriented with very little shade, and very simple installations. Because as a project cost goes up, so does that lease cost. All the incentives go to the leasing company, and of course you have to meet certain credit requirements because you don't own it, you're engaged in a lease. It's a wonderful opportunity to be able to install solar for no money, still receive meaningful savings over 20 years, but a different kind of savings. It's not going to be measured in tens of thousands, it's going to be measured in thousands of dollars. And fix your utility costs. You don't care when National Grid raises their utility rates because you're making your own electricity. Here are the actual program tiers and pricing, specifically for this program. We aggressively scaled down the installed cost because we wanted to drive adoption. So at the beginning of the program, when there are very few people who have signed up, if only less than 25 kilowatts is installed, which is a very small amount, we're already at 8 kilowatts with one system that we've done. That's about 5 systems at 5 kilowatts each. Everybody's going to pay $4.95 a watt. That represents a discount of about 6% over the statewide average Elizabeth was saying of $5.24 a watt or whatever it is. However, if we get to 250 kilowatts, so now we're talking about 50 residences or 40 residences and a couple businesses or a couple churches, that price goes down dramatically to $3.95 a watt. And everybody pays the same thing. So when you sign up, you're going to have a contract that says, here's your price now, but your final price is going to be determined at the end of the program on October 1st. There's a little number I put here at the bottom, which is what that discount represents specifically in Newburyport. Newburyport hasn't had an enormous number of solar installations. We've done one, the very beautiful solar installation. So there's a very small sample size to take from the CEC data, but Newburyport is a relatively expensive place to install solar. Its average installed cost is much higher than the state average. And that's because, you know, it's very interested, complicated houses. You know, I mean, they're not easy installations. So not only is this a very good discount off the state average, but it's an even bigger discount off of what's happened in Newburyport over the last, you know, year and a half. Here's a real system. This is one where we've gone out, we visited the house, we've designed the system, and we've priced it. So this is exactly what this particular customer got to look at. It's a 24-panel system. It turns into 5.7 kilowatts. The gross price is 28 grand. The Commonwealth Solar rebate is 2 grand. The federal tax credit is 7 grand. The state tax credit is 1 grand. So the net first year cost, that is, after all those incentives have been deducted, after you've done your taxes, is $17,000. And that's at tier 1. Below, you can see what happens to that project as those tiers increase. Well, instead of becoming a $28,000 project gross cost, if we get all the way to the top, it becomes a $22,000 project gross cost. So that's a very, very big effect on the internal rate of return, right? It goes from 17% to 23%. And you can see the payback for this system goes down. 6 years, 5 years, 4 years. Well, this customer, if they sign up, has significant interest in getting other people to sign up. I mean, that's a meaningful financial savings for them. And that's why it's designed this way. Sign up and then get everybody else to sign up. SunBug's approach to Newburyport, one of the potential criticisms one could have of a Solarize program, I love the Solarize program, but one of the potential criticisms one could have is it puts everybody in the same box. The object is to install the same system over and over on everybody's house. And SunBug didn't think, from our understanding of Newburyport and the region, that that was necessarily going to be the most attractive option for people. So we have a base system that anybody can participate in, but there are a lot of very different homes and very different concerns up here, so we added certain options that people could take advantage of if they wanted to. For instance, some people want panels that are made in America. That's a big deal to some people. And so for a small price increase, which I'll show you, you can have your system have American-made panels. Some people, aesthetic is very important. They need black frame panels. Those are the panels, right? So when there's 20 of those on your roof, forming a single array, it looks a little bit different when there's 20 of the silver framed ones on your roof, right? That's important to some people. It depends on where it is and how it faces. There are also some smaller roofs in Newburyport, so we have a high efficiency panel option. What that means essentially is that the same size panel produces a great deal more electricity. Those panels are 240 watts each. A high efficiency panel is the same size and it produces 327 watts instead. There's a premium for that. It's a very expensive, wonderful product made by SunPower, but it's something you can choose, right? It might be the right situation for you. And then microinverters, which is a technological decision, but some people want it. I can discuss a little bit about what a microinverter is. On every system that we do, we're putting a monitoring system for free, independent of what you may have what a la carte choices you make. These are the adders, right? So we have a base price, and then there's, well, what makes the project more expensive? On the top, you can see the customer options, those 4 things I just discussed. You may choose to have black panels. And what does it do? Well, it adds 10 cents per watt. That's not a great deal of money, right? That's on a $4 a watt thing, it becomes a $4.10 a watt thing. That's a very small percentage, so that might be a good choice for you. High efficiency panels, you'll see, are very expensive. They're made by SunPower. They are the premier solar panel on the planet. SunPower is always touting their efficiency. And it's a truly wonderful product. And even with that higher cost adder, it may be a really strong choice for people. It really produces more electricity. And then there are site-specific adders. So very, very small systems have a project increase cost because a lot of the project cost is balance of systems, not just panel. And no matter how small the system is, you still have to have an inverter and a meter and all of the associated equipment. If you get into a bigger system, we're going to go the opposite way. We're not going to add on to that cost, we're going to reduce that cost, because the corollary should be appropriate, right? Microinverters, if you get a system above 10 kW, you have to, mandated by the state, have a special monitor that automatically reports your SREC production. Some people might discover that their electric situation in their home is outdated and can't support a solar system. We can upgrade your electric service, put in a whole new panel at your home, which has other benefits besides just the solar system. Relocating a vent pipe, doing some of those roof things. There's a couple other options in here. I would say the ones that kind of are going to play out the most commonly are going to be finished basements. It's very hard to install the equipment if it's not an open basement for us to work in, so we have to add a tiny little 7 cents per that. But they're all specific to your site. Okay, leasing. Solar leasing is a totally different idea. Instead of you buying this thing and owning it and putting it on your roof, somebody else owns it and you pay a monthly cost for the electricity that it makes. Lease pricing is always a relationship between the cost of the thing and the amount of electricity that it makes. So as I said before, you'll see the best lease pricing for those very straightforward systems that are facing dead 180 solar south with no tree shade and that aren't an expensive, complicated installation, that it's one single plain roof. That doesn't mean that lease can't work for other situations. You're just going to see the best version of it there because it's that relationship. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to design your system at the appropriate pricing tier, and we're going to run it through the leasing model, and it comes out with how much you're going to pay per month. And as the tiers increase, we're going to be able to decrease your monthly payment because the cost of the thing is going to go down by those tiers. SunBug is technology agnostic and financing company agnostic. So we are going to bring the best possible leasing partner to Newburyport that we can, just as we're bringing the best possible equipment. We don't just sell one company's idea. These, for instance, are the components that we're going to be using, right? SMA inverters, Power 1 inverters, N-phase inverters. The central inverters come with 10-year manufacturing warranties. The N-phase inverters come with a 25-year manufacturer warranty. The panels, our base model is going to be Canadian Solar or equivalent, a Tier 1 Chinese-made module. That's the kind of base that the solar market is working at. It's a very, very, very good panel. We install them very frequently. If you want an American-made panel, it's going to be Solar World or equivalent. Solar World is a great company that makes a very, very high-quality panel. And then if you're going to go high efficiency, it's going to be SunPower. There is no equivalent for SunPower. They are the highest efficiency solar in the world. No panel that we will install on your roof is going to not meet some extremely basic and important criteria for SunBug, and that is all of them are positive power tolerance. What that means is that if they're rated at 240 watts, in actual test conditions, they produce 240 watts or better, never less, right? That's called a positive power tolerance warranty, and that's very important. And all of those panels are going to have a warranty that is very interesting. It's a 25-year warranty, and it's a warranty for power output. And it says, at year 25, those panels are going to produce 80% of what they were producing at year 1. Not none, but 80%. And, by the way, along the way, at year 10, they're going to produce 90% of what they were producing at year 1. Those are without those qualities, SunBug would never put that panel on your roof. Those are the kind of high quality of panel warranties. In terms of monitoring, we have the SunWatch meter, locus energy if that's necessary, and we're using snap and rack and uni-rack racking. There's examples of the racking here for those people who are into that kind of thing. You can actually see how it goes together. The process. SolarizeNewburyport.com is the center of everything. It's where you can learn more. It's where you can sign up. But from there, you would request a site evaluation. If your site isn't very good, we're going to make an assessment online. We're going to get you on the phone or send you an email. We're going to say, I'm sorry, we don't think this is an intelligent investment for you. It's just not going to produce well. But Solar hot water might, because solar hot water is much more forgiving. Or if neither is going to work, get an energy audit. That's a really important thing for everybody to do. If it does work, we're going to do your site evaluation, and then somewhere in the next week or two, we're going to be able to present you with your proposal. So we're going to design your system, figure out all the components, turn it into a real proposal with an ROI, and bring it to you. If the proposal makes sense, you're going to sign up. Glory be to me. If your proposal, it doesn't make sense, you know, the black panel I thought I wanted, but now I'm more concerned with high efficiency panels, you can work with us. We'll revise your proposal in order to get to what is appropriate for your house. But eventually, hopefully, you're going to sign up. You're going to give us a deposit. The deposit is $1,000 to get the next 6 things going, which is the contract, the Clean Energy Center rebate, the utility interconnection application, the electric permit, and the building permit. It's a whole bunch of steps. You don't have to do any of this. I'm just showing you what we're doing behind the scenes. At that point, or at some point, September 30th, the program's going to close, right? C'est la fini, no more signing up. At that point, you will know exactly what your price is going to be, because your contract is going to have those tiers in it. And from there, we're going to be able to schedule your installation. The installations are going to happen after the program sign-up window closes, with the exception of a couple projects that we're trying to do to generate interest, like Sam's project across the street. Timeline, all summer, we're running around conducting evaluations. If you haven't signed up, sign up. And tell other people to sign up that you think might have a good site. Starting next week in that room over there, we're going to be here every Wednesday from 3 to 7. If for some reason you're having trouble communicating with us, you want to come by and look at things in real life, we're going to be here. Bring by your proposal if you have it. Come by, talk to us about different technologies, whatever interests you. Any Wednesday, come on by. On August 2nd and 3rd, we're going to be installing across the street at 7 Brown Square at Sam's place. It's going to be pretty cool. You can actually see what happens, climbing on the roof, putting in the racking, the whole 9 yards. See the panels, the whole experience. Oh, and that, by the way, is Sam and the mayor. They made it into the paper the other day, which I thought was super cute. On the 30th, sign-up period ends. And then starting in October, we're going to start installing. Boom, 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 boom. How long is that going to take? Well, 2 huge factors. One is, how many installations do we have to do? And the second one is, what kind of winter are we going to have this winter? We've had winters where we've been able to install all winter, and we've had winters where we've lost 6 or more weeks due to snow. But one important question that people keep asking me in this model that the CEC set up, which is, well, that's great, Ben. The program closes in September. Why would I sign up before knowing what tier we're at? Why wouldn't I just wait till the 28th? And that is your right and privilege to wait till the end if you want. We're going to be jammed at the end, though. We're going to get a lot of people signing up. And in order to help try to deal with that, we are going to order installations as much as possible. Some of it has to do with equipment and actually getting from place A to place B in the order in which people sign up. So if you sign up early, you're going to be early in the installation queue come October when we're doing these. And that can be an important thing, because depending on the winter weather, you might end up installing more in the spring if you're toward the end of the queue.